Omanis and the Iranians come to an agreement, and you told me yesterday you thought they were close for
Mhm.
the sovereign use and control of the Strait of Hormuz. And Trump blesses it because he's got to do something to get out of this mess that he's in. What will Netanyahu and company do?
Apart from killing people, which is the only thing that they do. No? Well, this is very, very serious, Judge and Scott and Larry, because this agreement is practically 90% a done deal. It's between technicians on both sides, Omanis and Iranians. What they are agreeing at is that essentially, and this is the headline version, everything sailing into the Strait of Hormuz is under jurisdiction of the IRGC Navy, the PGSA body that they established, and they will have to pay the fees and clearance to the Iranians. And everything, literally, even pigeons, whatever, sailing out of the Strait of Hormuz, there are two layers. First one with the Omani authorities. It will be through Omani territorial waters. Second one, the Iranians as well. So essentially, the Iranians will control cargo traffic 100% coming in and at least 50% coming out. Can you imagine this signed officially by Tehran and Muscat and being a precondition to possible negotiations coming ahead if the dead cat MOU is resuscitated? Can you imagine President Trump and the Trump administration even beginning to accept something like this? If they do, it's the crystal clear definition of a strategic defeat.
I
There you
want to
go.
play a I want to play a clip from Major General Razai, who was at one time the head of the IRGC and is now the senior military advisor. Pepe told me
To
this
Mustafa
yesterday.
Khamenei. Yes.
Right. I wasn't sure who he was of the current Ayatollah. This is very profound, and this is yesterday. Chris, cut number 10.
The Strait of Hormuz will not be opened. No American warship has the right to enter the Persian Gulf. The American presence in the Persian Gulf is the main cause of the insecurity of the last 50 years. Without the US leaving the Persian Gulf and the Strait of Hormuz being controlled by the countries of the region themselves, especially us and the country of Oman, who are on both sides of this strait, it is impossible for security to be established. The end of the war is also in our hands. We will look at the end of the war when, first of all, we have received all our damages from America. Secondly, we must reach a 100% guarantee about the future, which is not possible without the US leaving the Persian Gulf. Therefore, the second condition is the withdrawal of the US from the Persian Gulf.
Scotty, what off ramp is available for Trump other than just coming home and admitting this was a mistake?
Well, I think the key is the Strait of Hormuz and getting energy flowing through the Strait of Hormuz in a consistent, predictable manner. This is critical for global, the global economy, and it's critical for the American economy. Donald Trump hinted at what I think could be a possible solution. If you remember early on, he said America is going to take control of the Strait of Hormuz, and we're going to apply a 20% tariff. So the first thing he did is legitimize the concept of a tariff. Now with the deal between Oman and Iran, Oman is going to have a corridor. 50% of the outgoing traffic is going to be controlled by the Omanis. I think there could be a side deal between Trump and the Omanis where America gets a piece of that action, and then Donald Trump gets to say that because we're getting a piece of the action, that implies that we have American control over the Strait of Hormuz, also that we're part of the guarantee of security. We're not totally subordinating it to Iran, and that gives him a political out. And I think that might be the way out for him. Look, we've already withdrawn the bulk of our troops from Bahrain. The Fifth Fleet headquarters is non-functional, and the American troops in Kuwait are likewise being withdrawn. If Donald Trump can say, I have secured the Strait of Hormuz, I am responsible for securing global energy. Therefore, there's no longer a need for American military troops in the Middle East. I am the great peacemaker. That could also provide them out. As Pepe and Larry know, and you know, Judge, and your audience knows, this is all a smokescreen. We lost the war, but Donald Trump can't admit that he lost the war. He has to find some way to say, because of me, I've made the security of the world safer. I'm the greatest thing since sliced bread. Vote for me.
Right. I want to put up a full screen of the speaker of the Iranian parliament showing how the Iranians can mock Trump. I will read this aloud. Massive attack coming. Wait, never mind. They want to negotiate. That's theater diplomacy on loop, using bullying, broken promises, fake news as leverage is a failed strategy. Acknowledge the facts and fulfill your commitments. We don't need more theater. Larry, are you surprised the Iranians are speaking so directly and derisively to the President of the United States?
Oh, heavens no. I love Golly Boff trolling Trump. Yeah, it's a beautiful thing. You know, he just, but he's not making anything up. I mean, that's exactly what Trump has done. Look, Trump is under enormous pressure. I've learned in the last 24 hours that the intel cell in the CAT, the Crisis Action Team at CENTCOM, it's been deactivated. So what does that mean? That means the odds that the United States is going to be launching any new military operations against the Iranians is pretty slim, because you got to have the intel cell up, if for no other reason, tell you about possible targets, tell you about possible threats. So the ops people won't do it without some of the intel backing. So then we have to step back and say, why is Trump suddenly completely reversed himself? Remember, 4 weeks ago, he said, every time Iran hits a ship trying to go through the strait, we're going to retaliate, and we're going to take out a bridge, or we're going to take out an oil factory, or something. Well, Iran's hit 4 ships at least in the last 5 days. The United States has not responded once. So what's going on? And I think a critical part of this is the economic damage from the closure of the Strait of Hormuz is having a global impact. It's not isolated to oil. It's also LNG, it's helium, it's sulfur, it's urea. This is indirectly connected. The shutdown of the Strait of Hormuz actually poured gasoline on the economic fire that was consuming Japan, where the United States had to intervene this week.
Right.
And so I think what Trump's looking at is there's a global shortage of diesel and aviation fuel, and with each passing day, that shortage is going to get worse because the United States has drawn down its strategic petroleum reserve about as far as it can go. Same with Japan. They don't have other alternatives. It's not like there's something else out there that can flip a switch and get replacement. So I think the bad news for Trump is what he's seeing is that the economic chaos that's flowing from this continued shutdown of the strait is going to have long-lasting effects that they'll certainly go through the midterm.
Pepe, can the Omanis give Trump a little piece of the action? I don't mean Trump personally. I'm sure he'd love that. But to the United States, just to give him an out? Or would the Iranians object to that? Or would the Iranians even be in a position to object to it?
Exactly. They will be in the position to object to it because they are supervising this technical negotiation. For instance, they go live for a few days now saying there's absolutely zero negotiations going on in the United States. The only negotiation going on is the technical negotiation between us and Oman. If we reach an agreement between us, then this agreement will translate or migrate towards a possible reenactment of the MOU. This is, by the way, this is what China wants. Want obviously full navigation rights for anyone across the Strait of Hormuz, but at the same time they respect Iranian sovereignty, their key ally. Don't forget the 400 billion 25-year strategic deal between Beijing and Tehran, energy
Right.
infrastructure. So Iran, this channel, China, Pakistan, Iran, is very, very strong because they are totally aligned. They all want the same thing. Uh, let's say free Strait of Hormuz, but free according to the new rules of the game established during the war. So when Ghalibaf is saying, and what Mohsen Rezai is saying, and it's good that you played both tapes, because one is the political voice of the leadership, the other one is the military-minded voice, and they are
Right.
basically saying the same thing. This is the new rules of the Strait of Hormuz are established by us because we inflicted a strategic defeat on the United States.
Right. Scotty, I want to wade into this issue of how depleted American military supplies are. Trump, according to the Washington Post, accused Hegseth of not being candid with him. The White House has denied the dispute. Trump says we have all the military equipment we need. That can't possibly be true.
No, it's not. What we do know is that the uh, ammunition allocated for use in the Middle East theater of operations has it's gone. They're down to literally nothing. They have been able to rob Peter to pay Paul. They go to the Pacific. They draw down stocks in the Pacific. They draw down stocks in Europe in order to for Hegseth to tell Trump we can sustain this fight for X number of days further. But what then Trump is being told by the commander of Pacific Theater and the commander of European forces is we no longer have conventional military power capable of deterring or containing or prevailing in any conflict with either China over Taiwan or Russia over the Baltics. You took away all the weapons we have. We've got nothing, which means there's a sort of a universal revolution taking place in the Pentagon saying that we're out of ammunition, Mr. President. Not only, if you continue to fight with the Iranians and drawing down even further, you're not going to get a different outcome. There's no magic formula to change the fact that we lost this war. We don't have a winning hand, but you're weakening us across the board. This is a global weakening of American military power. This is why, for instance, the Trump administration is redoing the nuclear posture right now, because they have to talk about if we went to war with China tomorrow over Taiwan and we have no conventional munitions, what do we do? And the answer is the early use of tactical nuclear weapons. Your audience needs to understand that. As we speak, the Trump administration is redoing our nuclear posture so that we can use tactical nuclear weapons early on in a conflict in larger numbers. Now, this is suicide. The moment we use it, it goes to general nuclear war. But that's the only option we have left because Pete Hegseth lied to the president, misled the president. And the president allowed these drawdowns to take place until we are not only weak in the Middle East, we're weak in Europe and in the Pacific as well.
Before you weigh in on this, Pepe and Larry, here's the President of the United States with another one of his lies. This is yesterday. He claims we have an unlimited supply of whatever we want. Listen to this, cut number 11.
Mr. President, on munitions, you posted overnight that the U.S. has a massive amount, and
right.
You denied that there were any shortages. There is a supplemental request for $21 billion to restock. So why is that request still there if there's
Well,
no
because we
urgency?
need more all the time. I mean, we need more. Look, we gave tremendous amount to Ukraine. The Biden people did. And they were given free of charge. No charge. No charge. Billions, hundreds of billions of dollars. And fortunately, I built up so much during my term. I rebuilt the military and also loaded it up with a lot of stuff. We have certain types of munitions that are very powerful, that we have unlimited, virtual unlimited supply. We have others where it's a little bit tighter.
Scotty, last topic. Will we see a more aggressive Russian military strategy in Ukraine, or will we see more of President Putin's patience?
Well, I think you're going to see a combination of both. I mean, the patience is that Russia will not expand this conflict into Europe. The aggression is that Russia has closed the door on negotiations and has taken the gloves off, and we're looking at the total destruction of Ukraine as the modern nation state occurring before our very eyes. The Russians have, achieved, a very important posture. They have exhausted Ukraine's air defense. Ukraine has no viable air defense today, which means that once Russia identifies a target, Russia will destroy the target. And thanks to Ukrainian stupidity, the target deck is now expanded to include not just purely military targets, but critical economic targets that are literally squeezing the life out of Ukraine as we speak. So all you have to do is take a look at the targets that are being struck and the damage being done. The Black Sea has been cut off from Ukraine. They no longer have access to the sea. 60% of their economy is non-existent anymore. Can't get the market. They can't get crops out of the field. They can't generate income. This is the death of Ukraine. We're watching literally the death of Ukraine. This could have happened 2-3 years ago militarily, but it couldn't have happened politically. What people have to understand is that Vladimir Putin has been balancing, a very delicate international diplomatic game. He's been playing the economic game in Russia and courting international investors, and he's been managing the domestic political, temperature in Russia. All of the things have been managed to the point that right now it is literally the perfect storm when it comes to being able to apply nation-killing damage to Ukraine. There's no nation in the world that can stand up to Russia, but more importantly, there's no nation in the world that is willing to stand up to Russia because Russia has outmaneuvered every single one of them. And Vladimir Putin's like the guy playing that rapid chess game against 50 people, and he's winning every single match.
Wow. Larry, before you respond, here's a statement from somebody that none of us really appreciates at all, but occasionally even a stopped clock, well, twice a day a stopped clock is correct. Here's Henry Kissinger on Ukraine in 2014. Far too often the Ukrainian issue is posed as a showdown, whether Ukraine joins the East or the West. But if Ukraine is to survive and thrive, it must not be either side's outpost against the other. It should function as a bridge between them. Larry, I think Vladimir Putin would agree with that.
Yeah. But listen, Henry, he had his faults, and you could accuse him of war crimes, but he was a smart strategist, and he was the one that got the China open and started that whole ball rolling. Yeah, look, the Ukrainians made a fatal error with their declaration really 40 days ago to open war against Russia, and as a result of that, Russia has now, as Scott correctly noted, shut down the Black Sea. Odessa and Nikolaev, those two critical ports, no longer operating, or they can't send anything out and not getting anything in, coupled with the repeated strikes of hypersonic missiles, cruise missiles, regular ballistic missiles, drones on key centers, both military, industrial, manufacturing inside Kyiv and other critical cities. And then on top of that, Russia has opened up a new front in Chernihiv. So now they're operating in 7 former oblasts in Chernihiv, Sumy, Kharkiv, Donetsk, Dnipropetrovsk, Zaporizhia, and Kherson. So, with this expanding the military operations, they're stretching the Ukrainian forces beyond the breaking point. So this is, I think in some respects, many are surprised that this is moving as rapidly as it is towards a conclusion.
Last question, Pepe. What was how measured was the Iranian response when the Ukrainians were crazy enough to attack an Iranian vessel?
They waited for a while, and I think in a matter of hours, one day later, Ukraine said it was a mistake. Can you believe that? They never excused themselves for anything. This time they made an official apology. And that's why nothing happened from Iran. They wanted to confirm, first of all, that Ukraine was trying to enter the war in the Caspian Sea. If that was the case, and considering that the military shuttle between Russia and Iran goes across the Caspian, it can be by boat, but usually by overflying the Caspian from Astrakhan to Bandar Anzali, and then to the port, Iranian port, and then to Tehran. So after let's say, the formal apology, the Iranians start talking to the Russians with their back channels and say, look, if they enter the war, I'm sure you're going to take care of them in the Caspian. You don't need us, right? And the terse Russian response, according to one of our contacts, was, yeah, we don't even need to call you. So stay cool. But if they attack your assets, that's a completely different story. But there was a lot of speculation at the time if this was a last desperation card by Ukraine to internationalize their war and actually merge both wars. But these wars are the same. The war against Iran and the war against Russia is the same war of the US against both, as a prelude to a war in the future against China. These wars have been the same war from the beginning.
Wow. Last thing I want to show you is Congressman Jason Crow eviscerating the Secretary of Defense, who calls himself the Secretary of War. Cut number 12.
Pete Hegseth, dressed up, sitting at the podium, saying everything's fine. I mean, that's what the man was hired to do, right? He's incompetent, he's unserious, he's a professional liar, but that's actually the point. He was hired to look good in a suit, stand at a podium, and say everything is fine. The problem is that there's this thing called the real world in reality that is pressing down now on the administration, and that you can't engage in a war and a conflict like this in perpetuity without a plan, without a supply line, without stockpiles, which this administration has decided to do, without eventually that reality catching up on you or with you. And that's what's happening here. Every passing week, we have fewer options, we have fewer off-ramps, and fewer things to protect our troops in the region, fewer options to assert pressure on Iran, and fewer off-ramps to end them.
Buddy?
I agree 100%. I mean, we're getting weaker. Iran's getting stronger. Understand this. We're running out of PAC-3 interceptors. We're running out of Tomahawks. We're running out of ATACMS and other long-range strike weapons. Iran is actually building more missiles, more drones. Iran is getting stronger. They just unveiled a new category of missile, the Rod-3, which has, ICBM type, capabilities attached to it. Iran is getting stronger, not weaker. This war is lost. The longer we wage this war against Iran, or the longer we prolong conflict termination, the stronger Iran gets. I mean, the best thing we can do from a national security perspective is end the war today, because this is as good as it's going to get for the United States. Tomorrow is going to be worse.
Guys, I have to run, but I also have to read what one of the commenters said. The judge is like OJ. He has the dream team. Thank you, Dream Team. You're all my dear friends and colleagues. Larry Johnson, Pepe Escobar, Scott Ritter. Always a pleasure, dear friends. We'll see all three of you next week. Scotty, I think you've already arrived at where you're going. It looks like that car has stopped.
Yep, but I'm a pro. I'm staying on. I'll try and make movement in the background so to deceive people.
All right. God bless you guys. All the best. Have a nice weekend.
Thanks, Judge.